Hey everybody, this is Steven, also known as KnitFan on Ravelry and Instagram, and now here on YouTube. And this is the Mingled Yarncast. Welcome. Today we are going to talk about, we really need to talk about Rhinebeck, don't we? I have a recap ready to go for you of things that went on there, shenanigans, and of course yarn, and meeting new friends and meeting old friends who I've never actually seen in person. So it was a really wonderful time, but that will come later. First, what I would like to talk about is, let me consult my show notes here. Oh yes, Skeinhead. That's where we're going to begin today. So, sometime during the early stages of the pandemic, when I really became much more involved on social media than I had been for a very long time, I came across a profile for Skeinhead, which is run by Mickey, who lived in Cornwall in England, but now lives in Bath. And which is just a coincidence that I know in the last episode I told you about my experience living in Bath, and it's a city that I love. It's just a wild coincidence that she lives there now. Although I guess it isn't so coincidental, because in addition to being fully punk rock from the tip of her mohawk to the bottom of her heart, she is probably the biggest Jane Austen fan that I know personally. And she's also a big advocate of the Brontes and all your Victorian lady writers. She knows quite a bit, and she's fun to talk to. And her gallery on Instagram is very fun to follow. And her products that she makes are very unique and very fun too. So I want to show you this t-shirt that I'm wearing. Let's see what you can see here. Ooh, I need to position myself a little better. All right, here we go. There we go. I'm kind of like half squatting here so you can see this. It says Frankenstein, and you can see a Frankenstein monster. Well, it's the monster, isn't it? It's not actually called Frankenstein. Hope everybody knows that. And this particular monster is obviously a David Bowie fan, and it's pretty cool. It says, "Knits Alive." So there you go. Perfect for Halloween. I believe she still has some of these on sale, although she does do a limited run of her t-shirts. I've purchased several other of her garments and wear and gear. This was last year's, or maybe it was, no, I think it was 2 years ago, my goodness, Halloween shirt. It says, "Knit fast, dye yarn." Ha 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 ha. Lots of detail, lots of fun things. You always get a look when you wear Skeinhead gear out and about, as I plan to on Halloween this Monday. By the way, today is Saturday before Halloween. Halloween's on Monday, which I guess makes this the 29th, October 29th, 2022. How about that? I also, in fact, the first thing that I purchased from Skeinhead was not a t-shirt. It was this project bag, which is one of my favorite project bags. I use it quite a lot. And this one is Skane Austen. Are you seeing a theme here? Lots of fun literary punnage happening. Anyway, the details on this are what really make it so great. We've got, oh, I can't read it backwards. We've got obstinate, headstrong girl across her little cap there. But notice this Jane, she has a face tattoo. It says Darcy. Of course it does. And there on her fingers, she has a finger tattoo, which says Bath, of course. And then I love this. Sisters before misters. Ha 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 ha. That is the kind of humor you will get from Mickey at Skeinhead. So definitely check her out. I'll put the links in the bio. I'm sharing this today because, well, the Halloween theme, obviously, but also because I just got it in the mail. And, oh, that reminds me. You have to see the packaging. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I hope you didn't miss me too much. So she has very fun envelopes. Can you see the sparkle? Very colorful. They're stickers. It's just fun. And also, ironically, not only did she move to Bath, but the return address is on here. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but she happens to have moved to the street that a very dear friend of mine lives on, and I've stayed on that street. I've probably stayed right next to where she's living now. It is a small world, people. But in this, in addition to the shirt, I got a lovely Happy Halloween, Stephen message and some spooky glitter. Not too much, though, because I think we all know that if you overdo the glitter, it becomes a real nuisance. This is not a nuisance. There's only a few pieces of it in here. But I have letters that friends, and I exchanged in college, because in the 90s, we still did that. And, you put things like glitter in there. And I swear to you, every time I move and I go to the box that contains one particular letter that contained one particularly large amount of glitter, it still bombs everything. And you can't get rid of it. It will be there till my dying day. I swear. All right, so there's that. What is next on our list now? Bath, Jane Austen. Oh, you know what I was going to suggest? Mickey at different times on her Instagram page has asked for people's favorite Austen quotes and Austen puns. I suggested once that she should have something that says obstinate, headstrong, Pearl. She hasn't done that yet as far as I know, but maybe she has. I hope she has. But what about you? Do we have any Austen fans out there? Anybody who has a clever quip or pun or a bit of wordplay that you would care to share? Because I know I would love it, and I'm sure Mickey would too if she watches this. So add that to the comments. Give us your best Jane Austen jokes down there. That'll be fun. Okay, so next is the big reveal of the the St. Brigid sweater, which, this light is very weird in here. If I move this way, I think it kind of disappears and you see the city, but if I come closer, now you see the lines better. So let me just bring it forward. So, isn't this glorious? Yes, it is. Yeah, I just want you to stare at that for a minute. I can't really get enough of it. I've learned so much from this project. I'm going to put it on in a minute, but I want to point out some things to you first. So you saw last episode I was working on the sleeves. I obviously finished that. This was intended to be my Rhinebeck sweater, and it was. I did wear it there on the first day, Saturday. I literally finished it in the car on the way there, which was kind of funny because I had read things where people said that they did that, and I thought, oh, that's a little, procrastinating, isn't it? Shame on you. But anyway, shame on me, because I was one of those people who was there sewing it up in the car and finishing the collar the morning of. And the collar was particularly, well, what's the word I'm looking for? Obstreperous, maybe? Something like that. A highfalutin word to say. It was bratty, and it was causing me trouble. So, the reason was, you can see this lovely braid, right? It is nice. I like it now. It's a pretty collar. But I made it, and then I pinned it here so that I could measure it. And, I could measure it with a tape measure, obviously, but I wanted to pin it to the piece itself to make sure that it fit. And it did when I pinned it. So I said, great. Time to cast it off. Time to sew it on. Let's do it. So I did it. And then I found that as it went around, where does this go? Let's see. I started here. You can see that bit of a scar in that seam. Went around. And then on the back, where is it? Here. It ended early. I had about 5 inches left between here and here where it didn't connect. And I guess I could have, put that together like that, but that would have really ruined the drape and it would have ruined everything. So what I did was I didn't have time to take the whole collar off again and undo the cast off edge. So I just cast on and knit a patch, and then of course the patch ended up being a little bigger than I needed it to be, so there's this funny little overlap here inside, but I think you can't really see it too well when I'm wearing it unless you know it's there. And, you know, I could have gotten away with it. You wouldn't have known if I hadn't told you. But it's just in my nature to confess the things I've done wrong. So you get to know the secret. But I think that's really the main, maybe, well, no, not the only mistake on here. There is one place in the knottage where I was cabling and something should have gone backward, but it went forward, and so that changed the way that things crisscross. But anyway, so be it. Again, it's so busy that nobody's going to see that. So, I said I learned a lot from this, and I did. I want to tell you what I learned, so that if you choose to make it, it might save you some trouble, but also just because I think it's good to catalog the things that we learn in our projects. So, one, when I cast this on initially, the piece, actually, you know what? Let me put it on, because it'll be easier to talk through it while I'm wearing it. Okay, here we go. Ooh. Ta-da! Okay, so you can see, I think, it has a good deal of negative ease. This is not sitting on me terribly tight, nor is it, you know, draping down too far. The original pattern, though, called for, sorry, trying to position myself correctly. There we go. The original pattern called for, well, as you can see here, this is the central panel. Then you have a braid on each side, and then you have a panel going that direction and a panel going that direction. And so those are different panels. So I think, let's see, this was panel A. No, the seed stitch was panel A on the sides. Then this was panel B, the braid. This was C, this was D, and this was E. Or maybe, no, C, D, E, that's what it was. Okay, so anyway, there are all these panels. And originally, you can see here, braid, panel E, and there should have been another braid here on that side. And the piece is done front and back. So it called for a braid here and a braid here on the front, and then the same thing on the back. So there would have been a braid here, a braid here. It would have been so much thicker or wider. And I thought that is going to be just like wearing a blanket. And that is not the look that I'm going for. I did not want to be walking around in a tarp. So, what was I to do? I took those braids out, obviously, as you saw, and I filled in a little bit more with the seed stitch, so that takes up more space than it probably should. I mean, maybe I could have put another braid there and then done less seed stitch. Anyway, the case being, though, that I did this. I took these out, and I modified it the way I wanted it. However, this is the first big cable project that I've ever done. Oh, my glasses are off. It's the first cable project I've ever done, and I'm sorry, the first big one. I've done little things and blankets and hats, but it's the first thing that I've done where it was cabled all around. And I didn't realize how much it was going to pull together. And some of you told me it would, and I appreciate that you told me that. I didn't believe you, but as I was making it, because when I first cast on, I mean, it just went, you can't even see it. It was so wide that I thought, this is never, ever, ever going to fit. And then when I reconfigured things and started to work on it, it was still big, but I thought, well, it is going to tighten up. And it did tighten up a lot. It tightened up a lot more than I thought it would. So then I was worried, is this going to fit in the end? For a moment, it seemed like it might not. I kept sort of like, you know, it's done in panels, so I'm stretching the panel on the front. Is this going to work? Is that going to work? And it did work. It did work very nicely. It's very beautiful. But that was a fear of mine. So the lesson learned is that when there are cables, they pull everything together, and what seems like it's going to be too big, perhaps will not. You've got to play around with it. Swatch, 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 which I did, but probably not enough. So bear that in mind for yourself to save yourself the heartache. Of course, in the end, it all worked out, but who knows? It might not have. I got lucky. What else to tell you? So this yarn, this is an Alice Starmore pattern, which I said in the previous episode, I believe. And I used her yarn, which you can buy at Virtual Yarns online. You can order it. The shipping took a very long time, but that was last November when things were very, very slow. I think they're still a little slow, but that was when it was the worst. In any case, it took about 2 months. And but when it finally arrived and I started working on it, it's really, really lovely yarn. And I always block everything. I mean, I do. I follow those instructions at least. But I've never seen anything really sort of bloom like this did. When I blocked this, it became so much softer. It opened up, and the cables became a little flatter, but not to the point where they disappeared. I mean, obviously you can still see those very, very clearly. They're not as bubbly as they were, but that was because they were pulled so tight, and it just kind of loosened. And now on the inside, it just feels like a nice flat fabric. Before, it was tense. It seemed like, if you took this piece and cut it in half, it would just go because everything's pulling so tight. So I love that about it, actually. I love that there's all this tension carried in this one piece of clothing. And every stitch, every cross, it's all pulling together to make this one beautiful effect. And I think it's pretty special. The reason I chose this particular pattern was, two things. One, I think it's in the very first episode of Fruity Knitting that I watched, and the first episode that they put up. Andrew was wearing it, and I saw that sweater in the video and I was like, that's it. So I hope somebody is watching this and feeling the same way, that you feel like you must have this now too. And I think Andrea did it the same way with the neckline, if I recall. But, one other modification to the neckline. If you see the original pattern, do I have it around here? Oh, I do. 1 second. It's right here. The original, I just want to show you this neckline because you may like the neckline and it may be exactly what you want. Of course, I've had this bookmarked, and now, all of a sudden, can't find it anywhere. Here we go. Okay, so if you can see the neckline there, she's got a bit of a ruffly turtleneck, a very loose kind of turtleneck effect there. I just didn't do that part of it, and instead, when I made the braided collar, I did it, I don't know if you can see this anyway, but I just did it as an I-cord. I had done enough West Knits projects, enough West Knit shawls to know how to do an I-cord along the rim, along the side. Excuse me. And I just applied that technique here. And so it has a very nice, smooth ring of an edge to it. Ta-da. So that's where I saw it. I fell in love with the pattern at that moment in time, and I knew that I wanted to make it. And so I got right on that. The other thing, though, is just I love Celtic designs. I always have. I love Irish things. I don't have a whole lot of Irish ancestry. According to 23andMe, there's a teensy bit. But that's not really what it's about anyway. It's just an admiration of the design, the character, and the beauty of it. It's really, really pretty stuff. And fun little anecdote. So when I was applying to college in 1995, I went to Denison University. I don't know if I've said that before. It's in Ohio. And I applied for a scholarship that they offered, a full tuition scholarship. And I walked in, I was in the weight room, just sitting there, and I was reading my book on Celtic mythology. And there I am reading about Irish gods and goddesses. And they call me in, and the interviewer, she asked me what I was reading. And I said, oh, well, Celtic mythology. And we spent probably 3/4 of the time just talking about that. And I got the scholarship. I got the full tuition scholarship. So what is the lesson here, kids? Always have a book on you, and you will impress people. Because she did tell me, she said, that was the reason. I didn't have to ask you other questions because I could see that you were interested in learning and life. So there you go. The other fun story to tell you is, and this sweater reminds me of it, actually, because I went to Ireland. I've been there twice. The first time was when I lived in England, and we had a break, so I went there for a week. I think it was October 2000. So this time, 22 years ago. And I had no money, so I did this, it was like a Shamrocker bus tour. It was really, really cheap, ridiculously cheap. I don't even know how they could afford to run this thing, because we spent a week in a bus staying in hostels. I don't know if food was included, but in any case, I don't remember what I paid. I just remember thinking, this is great because I have nothing. But so we went all over Ireland, not Northern Ireland at the time, but in Killarney, we were at a pub one night. This is towards the end of the trip, so I'd gotten to know everybody, made friends, and they said, we're going to have some contests tonight. We're gonna play some games here in the pub. And so I, voluntold one of my friends to go up and do the game. I don't remember what the game was that I told her to do. She said, okay, fine, I'll do it, but whatever the next thing is, you're doing it. I said, okay, fine, that's fine, I'll do it. I don't care. So she did her game. Don't recall what it was, but the next game was, the announcer comes up and he says, all right, we're gonna have an Irish step dance contest, and who are our takers? So I go up, and I told her, it's like, you didn't have to tell me to do this. I was already going to. This is my moment, because I have never studied Irish step dance, but I did watch a lot of Riverdance as a child. So I knew my Michael Flatley, and I knew my Countess Kathleen. I knew my moves. I knew, where to put the hands. I knew how to do the feet. And so he called me and this other woman, and he says, all right, here you go. Here are our two contestants. Now, you're going to do this. However, you're going to go into the hallway here, and you're going to swap clothing with each other. So she was wearing a sweater very similar to this and a skirt. I had on very tight pants, which probably helped me out. I think they restricted her a bit. The skirt helped me. And in any case, we did this dance, and I literally danced circles around her, and I won. And my friend that was there, she says to me, I'm not surprised that you won, because I figured you would. I'm surprised that you were good at that. And I said, yeah, I've watched a lot of Riverdance. I told you. I'm not lying about that. So anyway, all of this is to say that Celtic culture has played a role in my life in some very fun moments and in some very important ones, like getting a full tuition scholarship. So there you go. All right. Is there more to say about this? Show notes. Oh, yes. The colorway. So this is, I mentioned it was Alice Starmore's Virtual Yarns, and it is her Hebridean line, and the colorway is called Selkie. And I loved this as soon as I saw it, because I don't know if you know the story of the Selkie, or that legend, or myth, or whatever you want to call it. But Selkie is a sea creature that is part human and part seal, and as I may be messing this up a bit, but she can come on shore for a time, but she has to unzip her skin and take it off and be with her lover, her human lover. And as long as the skin is near her, she can stay with him. So she's always got to have that element of who she is nearby. But anyway, it's a shape-shifting, beautiful legend, beautiful creature, and you can see, knowing that it's about a seal, this is kind of a seal-colored color, right? And as I pointed out before, if you get really close to it, I don't know if you can see it all here, but the many other colors that are in it start to pop out. which is cool. So I loved it for that reason. I also loved it because you will hear me mention many times in my videos, I am sure, that I'm a huge fan of Tori Amos. She's my favorite musician. Let's just put it that way. And several of my design ideas that are percolating in my head, one I will talk about later, they relate to her songs. So this does too, because she has a song called Selkie. Imagine that. And anyway, I I saw that was the name, and I was like, this is it. Everything's coming together. There's serendipity everywhere you look. So that was that. I don't know that I have too much more to say about it at the moment, but I'm going to leave it on as we talk about the next few things. So now we're up to Rhinebeck. So Rhinebeck happened, well, everybody refers to it as Rhinebeck, of course, but you probably know, but maybe you don't, that it's really the New York Sheep and Wool Festival that happens at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds in the town of Rhinebeck. I think it's maybe it's in or near. But in any case, it's a huge, huge event, and people come from all over the world. And for many folks who got to know each other online, like myself, it's a chance to meet people that you are in contact with regularly in the knitting and crocheting and fibery world. And this was my second time going. Last year was the first. And last year, I went with a friend, Rachel, who was also the friend I went with this year. But we only went for one day, and we went on Sunday, and we arrived kind of late. So by the time I'd gotten there, most of the people that I was hoping to get to cross paths with had already gone. And that was fine, because I enjoyed walking around and shopping and seeing the sheep and seeing the vendors and talking to vendors. And I mean, it's just, there are thousands and thousands of, well, maybe that's exaggerating, hundreds and hundreds of vendors there, and selling thousands and thousands of skeins of yarn and all kinds of fiber related things. So it's quite the show, and it was a lot of fun. And I got to meet lots of people that I interact with on here, and I don't want to try to name them all, because I will leave somebody out and hurt someone's feelings, so I don't want to do that. But I will say that the year before, I was really, really hoping to meet Irina, who runs Fiber Chats, and I had done a Fiber Chat video with her, and we message each other quite a lot. So we'd been talking for 2 years at that point, I guess, since the start of the pandemic anyway, and I missed connecting with her last year. So this year we made sure to make it happen, and it was very lovely to get to see a friend that I've made through this medium in person, and to get to chat. So that was great, and I look forward to seeing you again, Irina, one day soon. So the day one, I didn't buy a thing. I won't say I was overwhelmed. Last year I went not knowing what to expect, and also I went one day, so on the first day I did do some shopping, but I went with no project in mind, and I just found yarn that spoke to me, and I bought something and went home with it. But then this year I did have a design in mind, so I knew what colors I want. I knew what kind of yarn I kind of was looking for. So day one, I just walked around and looked at everything, and then day two is when I actually bought some, and well, here it is. So it comes from Harrisville Designs in Harrisville, New Hampshire. And they gave us this lovely bag. So this is, let's see, I've got a sweater quantity. I'm not going to show you all of that, because why? This is their Highland woolen spun line. Isn't that pretty? Let me see if I can get the lighting on it just right. But it's a deep purple and a lighter burgundy, Bordeaux-y, kind of winey color. But anyway, I want to make a sweater with these two. And as I said, my design ideas are largely inspired by Tori Amos. And one of her famous songs is Raspberry Swirl. So I am going to make a raspberry swirl sweater with these colors. And the idea that I have in mind is that there will be spiraling stripes that spiral all around, like a purpley candy cane. I don't know if that's going to work, but that's what I'm going to play around with. And that's what the goal is with this yarn. So I was very proud of myself because I went there with a budget, and I intended to spend, or I was prepared to spend much more. But after going around everywhere and finally seeing these weren't bad. This was like $14.50, I think, per skein. So, a lot of things there are 30 plus. This was relatively cheap compared to what I was expecting to pay. So that meant that I had a little extra. And while I did want to stay under budget, I didn't want to blow the surplus. But I was like, you know what? I can afford a sock yarn or two. And actually, I just got one. This is from Cozy Colorworks. And I thought this was just very, very cool and kind of unique. If you look around online and you're seeing all the things that people are dyeing, obviously there's tons of variety and a lot that is very one of a kind and unique. But after a while, a lot of things do kind of start to look the same. You start to see similar color patterns showing up. But this, I felt like I had never seen. This kind of gray slate blue with those flares of copper and then bits of black. It was just really cool. And I thought, you know what? This will make a lovely pair of socks. And they'll be socks for me because I need some more. All right. So there's all of that. Show notes. All right. I think that gets us through Rhinebeck. Oh, no, one thing I didn't say. Just want to give a shout out to the Airbnb where we stayed. I'll put a link to it, but it's run by a woman named Peggy, and it was lovely. It was in the town of Highland, which was about 35 minutes from the fair, so it wasn't, right there in town. But the area in the Hudson River Valley is really, really beautiful. So even if you're staying a bit out and you have to drive, oh no, you have to drive through the beautiful fall foliage and see these gorgeous landscapes. What a terrible thing, right? No, it was great. So you should definitely check them out. Not just for Rhinebeck, but for a nice weekend getaway if you're in the region. Okay, so now, my current work in progress. And this one connects with the recent performance that I was part of, which if you follow me on Instagram, you already know. And if you watched the previous video, I think I mentioned it there too, but I was in a production of Carmen, Bizet's opera, and it was presented by Master Voices, which is the choir I sing with, and it was phenomenal. And I'm not just saying that. You don't have to take my word for it. You can take the New York Times word for it because they gave us a really great review. In fact, so great that they said the group should have its own theater so that we can do these things all the time. Well. Which is cool, right? Don't know if that will happen, but it's nice that somebody thought that should happen. But no, seriously, it was a really, really special performance. And the last few weeks were really, really busy. So Rhinebeck happened, I think the weekend of the 15th and 16th. The following weekend, which was last weekend, I was in rehearsal for 8 hours both days with the smaller chorus that gets to run around and do things on stage. And the rest of the chorus was in these towers in the theater. And the theater, by the way, is the Jazz at Lincoln Center Rose Theater. And it was cool because it looked like a bull ring. It was really the most perfect place we could have performed this. And anyway, all this to say, the soloists were phenomenal. The chorus sounded great. The orchestra was great. We got rave reviews. I'm very, very proud of the work that we did and of all of the performers. So, yeah, in the midst of all this, I did have a work in project that I was working on, and it is inspired in part by Carmen. I wanted something that was going to reflect, the kind of... to me, this feels kind of Spanish-y, right? The rusty orangey, bluey combo here. And these yarns, it's Malabrigo Rios. And I bought, it's a funny story behind these. I bought the blue 2 summers ago when I was visiting my dad in Ohio. He lives along Lake Erie up north. And there's a wonderful yarn shop there called, oh no, I'm going to have to look it up. It's got U in the title. Anyway, it's a wonderful place. The shop is beautiful. The woman who runs it, I believe her name is Christi. She runs workshops on how to use looms, how to dye, like all the things that you would want to do. She's got a workspace and she runs classes, and it's really just great. Just for you. I think that's it, but I'll confirm. But anyway, just for you gifts. So I always go there. And last year, some of you may recall, if you follow me on Instagram, that I was trying to make an Ohio Gansey. I'd been reading up on British fishermen's Ganseys, and I wanted to do something because my father's a fisherman, and I do go fishing with him when I'm there. And I thought, let's take this tradition and do something Midwestern with it. I haven't done that yet, but I did buy the yarn. And the reason I didn't use the yarn, I tried to, but all of the different textures of a traditional Gansey, they didn't show up very well in variegated multicolor yarn, and maybe I should have known that, but anyway. So I had still the sweater quantity of this beautiful, the blue, like I said, which you can kind of see there. And then this past summer I went back again. I was like, let me try again. And then I got the orange, but I didn't try to make a Gansey with the orange. It sat there with the blue in my stash, and I thought, they look nice together. I want to blend them. I want to do something else. So anyway, that's what I've done. Now, in the first episode, when I talked about the West Fjords Wanderer, I mentioned how that was a really fun creative piece for me because I didn't follow a pattern. Well, no, sorry. I followed a pattern, but I didn't follow the color scheme that the pattern suggested. Here, I'm not following a pattern at all, and I'm just playing with the colors as they flow out of me. Well, flow out of my project bag. This project bag, which I bought at Dover Castle in Dover, England. So yeah, the pattern is this. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see. It's what I thought was the Eye of Partridge stitch. So when I first made socks, the Eye of Partridge is often used for heels, for those who may not know. And I made several pairs of socks, and I did the stitch just like this. And then one day I looked at something online, and I saw somebody's Eye of Partridge, and I thought, that doesn't look like mine. And then I realized that when, you do your slip stitches in a traditional partridge stitch, the yarn is supposed to be in the back. So it's a slip stitch with yarn in back. I did them all with yarn in front. And I thought, well, I like my version better. So maybe it's not the Eye of Partridge. If this has a name, please tell me, because I don't know. I just know that it's my Eye of Partridge and I like it. So I thought, I want to do an entire sweater. If not the entire thing, I might change it up. I am thinking it gets a little monotonous, but maybe I'll break it up with some seed stitch, but it'll be some kind of stripy panel of just another kind of texture. And another way for these colors to play out and do what they're going to do. So yeah, I've been working on it, and just, you can see it starts off very orange, then it gets very blue, and then it gets very mingled. Mingled Yarncast, right? And then I decided I wanted a bluer section there to start to pop out, and then back to the blue and orange mixed. Next, there'll be a very saturated orange section with a little bit of blue added. And so I'm just playing with it like that and letting it flow off and be what it wants to be. And I'm loving it. I said there's not a pattern. I am kind of referring back to the Ranger cardigan, which I showcased in the last video, because I do want to have eventually the same kind of raglan shoulder stripes, which will be in orange. And something else to say about that. Oh, the weight of the yarn is the same as that pattern. So I just reimagined it as not being a cardigan, and I just started to work it in the round, and it seems like it's going to fit nicely. But anyway, there's that. So it is Carmen-inspired. Because it is meant to evoke a sort of a Spanish feel, but then again, it also evokes kind of a Mars feel, and it evokes kind of a, I don't know, lots of different feels, all the feels, as the kids say. And yeah, who knows what it's going to be like in the end, but I did work on it during the show and in the course of rehearsals, so it does have some of that Carmen energy woven into it, and I will always think of that show when I wear it, so it is my Carmen sweater. And I'm going to be taking it to a very special place in a couple of weeks, which I'm not going to say just yet, but that it is related to Carmen, so be on the lookout for that. Show notes. I think that really kind of takes us to the end. So that's everything I've got for you this week. Yeah, I'll have another video up in the next couple of weeks, probably. Well, it may be a while, actually. Next week, I'll be in Atlanta for a wedding. The week after that, I'll be on this special trip that I've mentioned to you. And maybe the following weekend, but we'll see. So if I don't see you soon, then I hope you enjoy this, and I will let you know when the next one comes out. All right. Take care, everybody, and happy knitting.